We're heading for a market crash. The bubble's going to burst. Oh my God. Yes, we've all heard the headlines before, but what really will the Toronto crash look like? Stay tuned to this episode of Prime Properties TV. I promise you, it'll be worth it. Good day, Toronto. Welcome to another episode of Prime Properties TV. I'm so glad you could join us here today. Boom. You hear that? That's the sound of a crash. No, it's not happening right now. With so many people talking about it, I want to take this time to go over the theory. Keyword in theory, what a crash in Toronto would and could look like. But before I start, did you know Toronto has only ever had one real estate crash dating back from 1970s when the Toronto Real Estate Board, the TREB, started recording sales data? One crash only. That would actually shock a lot of people if you actually watch my previous episodes about market crash. There's a link up here in the YouTube if you're watching YouTube, or you can click on the link in the description below. You'll see a nifty little nerdy spreadsheet I made that is color-coded red and green, which I'll put right here, that talks about and tracks the market as well. But this time, we're going to zoom in into the crash, where it's all red, that happened in the 1990s in Toronto. Bam! You see all that red stuff here? Those are the years of the crash. That's when it got bad. Real bad. If you look at it, Toronto was in a deep recession. Value of properties kept going down for 7 years, from 1990 to 1996. It rebounded in 96, and we haven't seen a crash since. If you were a functioning adult during that period of time during the crash, you probably have some crazy horror stories. Okay. Now, I'm not here to share horror stories, but I want to draw everyone's attention to two things in this episode: the lead up to the crash and what a proverbial crash would look like. Now, the lead up to it from 1985 to 1990, in those 5 years, we saw double-digit price increase year over year. That's nuts. If you compare us to right now, we're at year 2 right now of double-digit increases, just for the record. So these increases were as high as 37%. That's nuts. What does that mean? In those 5 years, the value of your property essentially doubled. Yes, it doubled in 5 years. Dang, that's some high ROI. That's some good return. Then the crash. Well, first it was a correction technically for the first 2 years, and then the crash for the balance of the 5. Now, the entirety of the devaluation period or the crash, these 7 years, happened relatively quickly. The prices fell 23% in the first 3 years of the crash. Now, you ask me what caused this? If I had to put my finger on it, also from the chatter around the industry, it's just because of the interest rate hikes. I'm going to give you guys a shocking fact a lot of you guys don't know. Did you know? From January 1st, 1990 to April 1st, 1990, that's 3 months, interest rates jumped 2.25%, from 12% to 14.25%. That's bananas. That's in 3 months, a quarter. I repeat, 2.25% from 12 to 14.25%. That's nuts. The rate hike is what we're looking at mortgage rates right now. That's what the Bank of Canada did to cool the market, for real. It's funny because some of the people are freaking out over last quarter when they increased it by 0.25 over like 3 months, okay? So anywho, without getting into super details, there are a lot of global market conditions that make increasing our interest rates really hard. So the government needs to make these silly rules like the stress test to cool the market. By the way, that didn't work very well. So if anyone wants to look at the history of Canadian interest rates, which is pretty cool if you're like a nerd like me, I'll put a link to the spreadsheet in the description below. And remember, after the 7 years, the total devaluation of the property was only 35%. Below the price, after that, the prices started increasing again. So if you're hanging around the sideline, waiting and timing and trying to time the market to hope to get that 50% off your house, you may want to reconsider your strategy. Yeah, like, seriously. Anywho, is a crash or correction coming? I don't know. It has to slow down at some point. If we compare our percentages to history, we're probably at like year 1985 or 1986, right leading up to the 1990s crash. So does that mean we have 3 or 4 more years in this proverbial state of price increase? I have no idea, because our conditions are different from before. What I do believe is whatever the reason that market condition changes for, it'll likely have to be a global change that affects interest rates, or some radical new lending changes from the government or from the banks. So those are really the only things that's going to whack out and that's going to totally change the market right now. Thank you guys for watching. If you learned something or simply enjoyed watching this, make sure to subscribe to Prime Property Studio over here and click on that little bell so you'll be notified when we put new content up there. If you have any questions or you want a free consultation from me personally, contact me. My contacts are right here, okay? And make sure you guys remember to do this. Share this with your family and friends because like I always say, an educated consumer is the best consumer. I'll see you next time, Toronto.